Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. Great to be here and talk about the emerging AI threats. Initially, we thought we'll talk about generic AI security, but we thought let's live a little and talk more about the emerging and exciting, or not so exciting things that we're seeing. A little bit about me. I work as a security architect, senior security architect for Kainos and very large national scale projects, but I'm also very involved in a non-profit organization, the Open Worldwide Application Security Project, or OWASP, which is considered to be the gold standard in application security. And I'm privileged to lead two of the standards on AI security that have been widely adopted by many people and organizations, and they have been recommended by organizations like the UK government. As part of my work there, the contribution there, I liaise with many other organizations, particularly with the US AI Safety Institute. And very recently, I've published a book on adversarial AI, which is a bit relevant to what we're going to discuss today. So when we talk about adversarial AI, we want to highlight how AI expands the remit of or the concerns of security beyond the traditional concerns that we have around how adversaries will access system and data. And really, adversarial AI aims to understands the way machine learning and AI is working and tries to trick, in a nutshell, that method of working, particularly the dependency on large amounts of live data to either exfiltrate sensitive information or to trick it to do things that we wouldn't want to do it, like kind of fraud and misinformation. With LLMs, we have also hallucinations, and the previous speaker explained it very nicely, the built-in property that occasionally, sometimes we don't get accurate answers from AI. And increasingly, we see something that traditionally was seen as safety, but now becomes an overlapped concern of how do we prevent weaponization, misuse, and also the increased autonomy that another speaker spoke earlier today. If you look at the current security guidelines from OWASP, from all the other groups that we work with, the National Cybersecurity Center, MITRE, they all focus on the traditional cybersecurity and the lower end of adversarial AI because it's more kind of predictable for us to secure it. What you see there is the version 1 of top 10 for LLMs. Most of the other standards have similar scope. In a few weeks' time, we're releasing version 2, and that's how we started those conversations. And the focus really moved towards this area that initially we thought, well, this is safety, we don't have to worry about it, but actually they're so interconnected, you have to look at them. And this is the areas that I want to talk about. Now, the discussions we had there align fully with the discussions in all other groups that I mentioned. In fact, the 4 types of emerging threats that we see, they're taken from the report of the AI Safety Institute in the UK. The first one, apparently after evaluations, LLMs are really, really clever on biology and chemistry. At the PhD expert level, those are the kind of answers that we get. And so that makes them very susceptible to being weaponized. And of course, we're very worried about that. And that is more of a kind of state level threat that everyone, particularly the AI Safety Institute, is focusing. And in fact, as part of the US AIC working group, we're looking at red teaming in that area. For cyber attacks, they're not as clever. The evaluations indicate that they're the equivalent of a school leaver, but because of the convincingly sound responses and the way they scale, they can be very useful to cyber attackers to stage attacks, to scaffold, to find new things that in the past they wouldn't be able to do. And we see things like bypassing captures and offensive security techniques. And this is for cybersecurity professionals. Today, I want to focus more on the other 2 types of emerging threats that will affect most of you. And I want out of this conversation not to scare people. I don't believe shock and awe makes anyone more secure. I just want us to think about those and how we're going to evolve and address them. The first one is malicious content. Most of you are familiar with misinformation, and I'm sure you've heard about deep fakes. So we're going to go through that and how they have evolved. And then talk about, Neil talked about autonomous agents at a very kind of high level. I want to take a little bit down what we see, particularly in OWASP. We had this kind of massive conversations about autonomous agents and the risks that they bring. If we start from deepfake videos primarily focus on face swap. They take the video of someone and they superimpose someone else's face convincingly. They have evolved. What you see here is an open source project that you don't have to do anything, any massive setup. You just sit in the background once you've set up the system, and you actually you drive this character. And you can imagine a scenario where you're interviewing someone, particularly post-pandemic, you're interviewing someone on Teams or Zoom, and you think they're answering the questions, but they're not really answering the questions. Someone else is doing it for them. And that's just one case of kind of weaponization and use of deepfakes. What we see in research, particularly from Alibaba, is the ability to now automate deepfakes. So instead of doing all those movements there, you can just create the audio files, and then you can drive them through the videos, and then you get what they call the talking head, which could be useful in many scenarios. What we're also seeing from the research from Alibaba is the ability to actually go beyond the faces and do very convincing, and they compare with the previous research project, how well they have done it, so they can actually move your entire body. And you may think, well, who's going to draw all those things? Well, actually, this is to illustrate the point. It's programmatically doable, so you can automate it either with scripts or with your own movement. And you can imagine a use case where, I think it's Monzo that asks you to move a little bit when you register. Well, up to now, we couldn't do that. This perhaps will be in the tooling of the adversarial attackers that could actually fool that part. And it isn't just research. We are seeing commoditization, we're seeing commercial offerings, and generative AI has commoditized that deepfake technology. The emphasis on avatars, we first saw in Synthesia an excellent UK startup which has predefined avatars, and you go there and you record sequences by providing video. And unfortunately for them, and I've been known to them, the Venezuelan government used them to create fake TV channels to spread misinformation within the Venezuelan public. And of course, they found out and they shut them down. It's progressing very fast. We now have the ability to create your own avatar from a different startup using your own images. And notice the price, $24. It's kind of nothing. Our adversaries can use that. And of course, today, those of you who watched the digital panelist from Will and his team, you saw the evolution of that. So it isn't just about pre-recording a video with an avatar. You can actually have a real-time avatar, which is really a scary perspective. Where things have gone massively ahead and fast is text-to-voice and voice cloning. It used to be a very challenging technical issue, no more. There are startups that you pay, you can have actually a free entry and then $5, and you can, 30 seconds of your voice, that's all I need. It clones. I can actually repeat it in different language, so I can clone you in English, and I can then play you back to my mom pretending you're Greek. You can add emotion and style guidance, and this is really, kind of some of the most scaring stuff that we have seen. So you have the research progressing, you have also commercialization driving the innovation there, and these are fantastic innovations. I can see the immense positive impact they will have on healthcare, education, assisted living, but they also have risks. And so what are the attacks that we're seeing today from deepfakes? We talked about misinformation, also an old photograph there that was generated by AI with Donald Trump. Something else that's happening in the background that no one is paying attention, and they're very low quality, but quite successful actually, fake enhancements of changing videos, and then you see Oprah Winfrey endorsing your goods. The one that's really, really worrying is, and a menace really, is the defamation. It's not just the celebrities, it's not just the Swifties that have to worry. It's that sextortion and blackmail, particularly of young women, to the degree where the FBI had to issue it. If you go to the website, there is a public service announcement explaining how to deal with sextortion that's generated by deepfakes. But as I said, the area where, in terms of financial impact, most of the attacks are happening is voice cloning. So I'm sure you read the stories about financial workers and high senior executives being targeted by some other purportedly senior executive asking for an urgent request, and that has been very successful, and people have transferred actually millions and hundreds of thousands. Some will be real time, some will be to avoid some of the problems. They will post it as a message, as a voice message to your WhatsApp or whatever messaging platform you're using. They seem to be pivoting towards economies of scale and targeting individuals. So there was this case that actually the mother ended up giving a witness in the US Congress, where they knew from the social media that her daughter with her father was away, and they didn't have any coverage, any phone coverage, because the mother was worried and were publishing that to everyone. And then they created this attack saying, well, actually, they played the voice of her daughter screaming that she's being kidnapped. Things happen, I can't remember the details. She realized that actually that was kind of fake and went to the police, so thank God she didn't fall for that. That wasn't the case for, I think it was about 8 of them, different cases where they played the message that their grandson was arrested for drugs and they needed money for bailout and scenarios that all of them have to do with distress and shock. And then immediately people transfer the money, and that's 200,000 in total. It's becoming more widespread. The UK banks and regulators are worried about that, not just because of the scams, because we talk about voice authentication as being something very secure, but really, that's being challenged. How do we protect? Well, the actual defenses are not there yet. Content authentication is still in its infancy. Deepfake detection is in progress, but not reliable. And I don't think it would actually work if someone was under shock. So you need to think about your processes, to do a little bit of mental threat modeling of how they affect those attacks, those processes, the interviews you're doing, the messages that you receive. You must make sure your systems aren't being used for those kind of abuses, have the use policies, and at this stage, awareness and education is key. People must understand that seeing and listening is not believing anymore. The other area, that was for deepfakes, the other area is about autonomous agents, which is effectively the move away from the traditional application in one model. All of a sudden, we're seeing this move towards this lightweight that Neil described earlier today, lightweight applications that use multiple models, they coordinate together, they have distinct roles, they may not have many constraints and being autonomous, and they actually teach each other, getting some emergent behavior that perhaps will lead to artificial general intelligence. But, and that actually, in addition to that sophistication, it shows us the challenges of scaling AI, particularly, our very popular human in the loop. Some examples here, it's emerging, but there are many examples, particularly by a framework called AutoGen, where you can see the breadth of those examples, both in a multi-agent collaboration, but also how they teach each other, how they use multimedia. So you can imagine, deepfakes meets autonomy, which would be a scary proposition, really. And you can see an app, my favorite one, which isn't very useful, but shows the autonomy, which is 2 models playing chess. This is exciting stuff, but brings risks. We already know that we need to defend against hallucination, because I don't want to eat one smaller rock, and I'm sure you don't want to be in the shoes of Air Canada, which was legally liable for advice that was given by the chatbot. But also what we're seeing is research indicates that actually that autonomy level, AI is or the LLMs are quite good at exploiting those vulnerabilities and spreading them like fire amongst them. But the best story really for me that indicates what happens if we get this wrong, the autonomy, is a news story a year ago where, I don't know whether it's happened. Initially they said, oh, it's happened, and then they said, oh no, we misspoke, it never did. But regardless of whether it's happened, the story is this. An AI-trained drone is tasked to go out and take down an adversary, and the instructions are to actually eliminate any impediment. So then, during the simulation, the operator recalls the drone, but the drone, of course, interprets this as an impediment and goes back and kills the operator. So regardless of what has happened there, I think it's key to remember that it's not just an adversary that will hack our system. If we don't think those things through carefully, then we'll end up in unintended consequences. So do we give up? No, of course not. Agentic governance is a big topic, and we will for sure we will contribute as part of OWASP and as Kainos to the agentic foundations. But there are two things I want you to take away and think about. So the one is excessive agency. When you start rolling things out, and I don't mean the super duper agents, even when you do Copilot, how do you have zero trust so that they don't exfiltrate accidentally your data and they don't cause havoc to your system? And the other one is human in the loop. We need to think, we all thought, oh, this is, the kind of the answer to our prayers. Is it going to be a long-term solution? I'm now in a minority in OWASP, so it's my personal opinion. I don't think it's the long-term solution. I think it's a critical defense towards critical decisions, but it doesn't scale. And I think we need to learn of how we manage humans. We don't expect all humans to give us the right answers all the time. We don't go around chasing them to say, hey, have you said what you said is accurate? We manage by exception. So I think this is what we need to think. It doesn't mean we'll throw babies out of the water. We'll still have that oversight, but we need to borrow some of the practices that we see the big guys. When they train the models, how do they do safety feature reinforcement? They use that reinforcement training on human feedback, on AI. So we need to make that as part of intelligent monitoring and guide with a very goal-driven and constrained way the agents. It's very early days. This is just for people to think. We call that triadic adaptation, and it's something that you will hear from us more and more to talk about. But overall, I put the examples there. Trial, understand the dynamics, because they're quite different from the way applications work. So I really want you to understand how they work and the unconstrained nature and the different types of agentic workflows you can have. And this play with things is the same advice for any emerging threat. New technology, we will always have emerging threats. It will never be a kind of happily ever after. We cannot step back and not engage with technology. So I think we need to always pay attention, understand, and do that exercise of saying, well, actually, how is this going to affect my existing business processes and practices? Not for the very kind of forward-looking, but some of the things that are appearing, kind of have that readiness. A little bit of that threat modeling that I mentioned. Find out where you need to put some additional controls. Have a conversation internally of what are the critical functions that absolutely require human oversight. What's the cost-benefit approach to this control? And how am I going to introduce some intelligent monitoring? Do some red teaming in some of your critical processes. It will be interesting to see what you find out if someone tried to fool you, and we can help you if you wanted to kind of hack your interview process with a deep fake to see how far we get. What user awareness and all that and policies goes without saying, but what we're learning from all this is that actually security cannot be separated by ethics, by safety, by responsible AI, if it ever was. Because the overlap, the collaboration, the impact is so important. I urge any of my cybersecurity colleagues to speak to your ethicists. I urge any of my ethicist friends to speak to cybersecurity colleagues, because that's the only way we can actually give you that compass. And that's something in Kainos, my brilliant data ethicist, Suzanne, has been spearheading. The responsible AI framework gives you that guideline that allows you to experiment without actually shutting down technology and aspiration or taking unnecessary risks. And this really is the key message. We at OWASP consider that you not using AI or the new technology is an actual vulnerability. Why? Because regardless of what you do, the bad guys, the adversaries, will use it anyway. So what you have done is you have donated that capability to them, and you will be totally unprepared when they come after you. So understand, create a safe environment, use that safe, the framework to make sure you don't take unnecessary risks. And there are so many amazing things that you can do. So it would be really a shame to just hand them over to the bad guys. And just to give you an example, I want to leave you, because we didn't do that session on AI security, and I couldn't let you go without that. I've used Notebook LM from Google, put there the slides I was going to use, and create a 10-minute deepfake podcast on AI security. So I'd like you to download it and listen to it. It's only 10 minutes and gives you a little kind of more the current state of AI. So thank you very much.